Look, I'm not saying my Tuesday started badly, but when you wake up to proximity alarms screaming like banshees and three pirate ships surrounding your cargo hauler, you know it's going to be one of those days. The kind where you seriously consider switching careers to something safer, like bond disposal or professional wrestling with angry grizzly bears. My name's Jess Murphy, and I haul cargo across the Outer Rim territories for a living. It's honest work, if you ignore the part where half my clients are smugglers, the other half are revolutionaries, and the shipping manifests are more fiction than a politician's campaign promises. Today's cargo was supposed to be simple: medical supplies for Kepler Station. Basic stuff. Bandages, antiseptics, maybe some painkillers for the miners who keep forgetting that plasma cutters and fingers don't mix well. The reasonable excuse my ship isn't much to look at. She's a modified cargo hauler with more patches than original hull plating, engines that sound like they're having an existential crisis, and life support that works on a strictly volunteer basis. But she's fast when she needs to be, and she's got more hidden compartments than a magician's coat. Which brings me to Captain Zlorg and his merry band of space idiots. Zlorg fancied himself a feared pirate captain. In reality, he sounded like someone had taught a rubber duck to speak galactic standard and given it delusions of grandeur. His voice squeaked through my comm system like a deflating balloon trying to order a pizza. Human vessel, you will surrender your cargo immediately or face the consequences of your defiance against the mighty Zlorg the Terrible. I looked at my scanner readouts. 3 ships, all of them cobbled together from spare parts and held together by what I could only assume was sheer stupidity and cosmic duct tape. Their weapon signatures were pathetic. I'd seen more threatening displays at a kindergarten laser tag tournament. Mighty Zlorg the Terrible? I keyed my comm. Did you practice that introduction in the mirror, or does it just come naturally when you've got delusions of adequacy? There was a pause. Then Zlorg's voice came back, somehow managing to sound even more squeaky. You dare mock the terror of the Outer Rim? Terror of the Outer Rim? Buddy, you're barely the mild inconvenience of the Outer Rim. I've seen scarier things in discount bin horror movies. Now, here's where things got interesting. See, my cargo manifest listed those medical supplies as basic first aid equipment. What it didn't mention was that 20 crates in the back contained military-grade combat stims, the kind that could turn a regular human into something that would make an action movie hero look like a couch potato. I'd grabbed the wrong shipment at the depot. Kilo happens more often than you'd think in this business. Usually it just means someone gets decorative flowers instead of engine parts. This time it meant I was flying around with enough concentrated human enhancement drugs to turn a librarian into a one-person army. The pirates opened fire, which was their first mistake. Well, technically their first mistake was getting up that morning and deciding piracy was a viable career choice, but the shooting was definitely in the top 3. I threw the reasonable excuse into an evasive pattern that would have made a caffeinated hummingbird dizzy. We danced through space like we were auditioning for some cosmic ballet, except with more explosions and significantly less tutors. This is your final warning, human. Zlorg squeaked over the comm. Surrender now, or we will board your vessel and take your cargo by force. I checked my sensors again. They were closing in, and my ship's defensive systems were about as effective as harsh language against a brick wall. Time for Plan B. Actually, this was more like Plan F, since plans A through E had all involved not getting caught by pirates in the first place. All right, I said into the comm. You win. Captain Squeaky. I'm powering down weapons and engines. Just don't hurt me. I'm just a harmless little cargo hauler trying to make an honest living. The sarcasm was thick enough to cut with a knife, but apparently Zlorg's species hadn't evolved sarcasm detection yet. A wise choice, human. Prepare to be boarded. As their ships moved in for docking, I quietly grabbed one of those military stim packs from the cargo hold. The label was covered in warning text in 17 different languages, which is never a good sign. The Galactic Standard translation roughly said may cause superhuman strength, accelerated healing, temporary invulnerability, and an irresistible urge to solve problems with violence. Do not operate heavy machinery or engage in diplomatic negotiations while under the influence. I looked at the stim pack, then at the docking pirates, then back at the stim pack. Sometimes the universe makes your decisions for you. The docking clamps engaged with a sound like a giant cosmic stapler, and I heard the unmistakable hiss of an airlock cycling. Pirates were boarding my ship, which meant my insurance premiums were about to go through the roof again. I pocketed the stim pack and walked to the cargo bay to meet my uninvited guests. The airlock door opened with a dramatic swoosh, and out stepped the most ridiculous collection of space bandits I'd ever seen. They looked like they'd raided a costume shop that specialized in generic alien villain number 3. Leading them was a purple lizard thing wearing what appeared to be military armor purchased from the clearance section of Space Walmart. He had more confidence than skill, which in my experience was the most dangerous combination in the galaxy. His name tag, and I kid you not, actually said Commander Vex in blocky military font. "Human," Vex announced, pointing a plasma rifle at me, with all the authority of someone who'd watched too many war movies. "You are now prisoners of Captain Zlorg's fleet. Surrender your cargo manifest and prepare to be searched." I raised my hands in the universal gesture of "please don't shoot me, I'm cooperating." "Well, hello there, Commander Fashion Statement, nice armor. Did it come with matching accessories, or did you have to buy the incompetence separately?" Vex's reptilian face scrunched up in what I assumed was confusion. "You will show proper respect to your superiors, human scum." "Superior? Buddy, I've seen more impressive leadership skills from a broken GPS unit. At least those admit when they're lost." 3 more pirates shuffled out of the airlock behind Vex. They looked like they'd been recruited from the Galactic Unemployment Line and given weapons without any of that pesky training that usually comes with not accidentally shooting yourself in the foot. "Enough talk." Vex snarled, waving his plasma rifle around like he was conducting a very violent orchestra. "Show us to your cargo hold immediately." I shrugged and led them deeper into my ship. The cargo hold was standard configuration. Lots of sealed crates, basic environmental controls, and absolutely no hidden compartments full of contraband that definitely weren't there. The pirates spread out and started examining the cargo containers with all the professionalism of children opening birthday presents. "Medical supplies," one of them called out, cracking open a crate. "Bandages, antiseptics, basic first aid equipment." "Boring," muttered another, kicking a container with his boot. "Where's the good stuff?" "Weapons, exotic narcotics, illegal AI cores." Vex strutted around the cargo hold like he owned the place, which technically he did now, thanks to the ancient law of possession is 9/10 of the law, and plasma rifles are the other 10th. "You," he pointed the rifle at me again, "open those containers at the back." I walked over to the military stim pack crates, trying to look nervous instead of excited. This was going to be fun. "These? Oh, these are just more medical supplies, nothing interesting." I popped the seal on one of the crates, revealing rows of military-grade stim packs in their protective foam. They looked innocent enough if you didn't read the warning labels, which, judging by these pirates' general approach to life, they wouldn't. "What are these?" Vex demanded, picking up one of the stim packs and examining it like it might explode. Which, to be fair, it might. "Painkillers," I said, which was technically true. They definitely kill someone's pain, along with their ability to feel anything else for the next several hours. For the miners on Kepler Station. They have a lot of industrial accidents. Vex's eyes lit up with greed. "Military-grade painkillers, these must be worth a fortune on the black market." "Oh, absolutely," I nodded enthusiastically. "Super valuable. You should definitely take them all." Now, here's where I tried diplomacy, my version of diplomacy, which admittedly wasn't covered in any textbooks on interstellar relations. "Look, Commander Discount Darth Vader," I said, adopting my most reasonable tone. "You've got what you came for. Why don't you take the cargo and leave me with my ship? I promise I won't report this to the authorities." Mostly because the authorities in this sector consist of 3 drunk security guards and a vending machine that dispenses citations. Vex laughed, which sounded like someone gargling with gravel. "I don't think so, human. You've seen too much. You could identify us." "Identify you?" "Buddy, you're wearing a name tag." I'm pretty sure stealth isn't your primary concern here. Silence. Vex raised his plasma rifle, and I could see his finger tightening on the trigger. You Deathworlders are all the same. Too stupid to know when you're beaten. Deathworlders. That's what the rest of the galaxy called humans. Not because we were particularly violent, mind you, but because we came from a planet that actively tried to kill everything on it on a daily basis. Most aliens came from nice, peaceful worlds where the biggest predator was something equivalent to an angry hamster. Earth had sharks, bears, Australia, and humans stupid enough to think all of that was entertaining. Too stupid to know when we're beaten. I repeated, slipping my hand into my pocket and palming the stim pack. Yeah, that's definitely one of our character flaws. Tessa. Enter. Vex's plasma rifle hummed as it powered up. Any last words, Deathworlder? I looked him straight in his beady little reptilian eyes and smiled. Yeah. You might want to step back. The plasma bolt hit me square in the chest, and the world exploded into pain and darkness. I felt myself falling, heard the pirates cheering, and had just enough consciousness left to inject the stim pack into my arm before everything went black. The last thing I heard was Vex laughing, filled the cargo and scuttled the ship. One less Deathworlder in the galaxy. Yeah, well, we'd see about that. Dying is a lot more boring than you'd expect. I mean, you'd think there'd be bright lights, or your life flashing before your eyes, or at least some decent background music. Instead, there was just darkness and the vague sensation that something very important was happening to my internal organs. The military stim pack was doing its thing, which apparently involved completely rewiring my cardiovascular system while I was unconscious. I could feel my body rebuilding itself at the cellular level, like someone was running a very thorough renovation project on my entire biological infrastructure. If I'd been conscious, it probably would have been extremely uncomfortable. As it was, it just felt like the world's most intensive spa treatment. I woke up floating in space, which was not on my list of preferred places to regain consciousness. The good news was that I was still alive, which came as something of a surprise considering I'd been shot in the chest with a military-grade plasma rifle. The better news was that I was wearing my emergency spacesuit, which the pirates had apparently left on me out of some misguided sense of cosmic courtesy. The bad news was that I was floating in the debris field that used to be the reasonable excuse. My ship had been scattered across roughly 3 cubic kilometers of space, along with most of my personal belongings and what remained of my faith in the basic decency of the galactic community. I activated my suit's comm system and tried to get a status update. Emergency beacon activated. This is Jess Murphy, requesting immediate rescue assistance. Current location. I checked my suit's navigation system. In the middle of absolutely nowhere, surrounded by the remains of my livelihood. The stim pack was definitely working. I could feel strength coursing through my muscles like someone had replaced my blood with concentrated determination. My vision was sharper, my reflexes faster, and my temper had gone from mildly irritated to cosmic forces of vengeance, somewhere during the resurrection process. More importantly, I could see the pirates' ships in the distance, heading toward what looked like an asteroid base. They were flying in a loose formation, probably congratulating themselves on their successful raid and completely unaware that they'd just made the kind of mistake that gets you featured in cautionary tales told around campfires. A maintenance drone drifted past, one of those automated units that kept the shipping lanes clear of debris. It was about the size of a small spacecraft, with basic life support and enough fuel to reach the nearest station. More importantly, it had a functional transponder that I could hack to track the pirates. I grabbed onto the drone and forced open its maintenance hatch. The internal systems were basic but functional: navigation, communication, basic life support, and surprisingly, a small fabrication unit for emergency repairs. Exactly what I needed. Sorry about this, I told the drone's AI as I began rewiring its control systems. I'm commandeering you in the name of justified revenge and extremely poor life choices. The AI responded with a series of confused beeps, which I took as consent. Within 20 minutes, I had the drone's systems reconfigured to accept human control inputs. It wasn't comfortable, but it would get me where I needed to go. As I piloted the maintenance drone toward the asteroid base, I had time to really think about what the stim pack had done to me. The strength enhancement was obvious, but there were other changes too. My healing factor had accelerated to the point where the plasma burn on my chest was already fading to a light scar. My senses were sharper, my reflexes faster, and most importantly, my capacity for creative problem solving had increased exponentially. See, humans had earned their Deathworlder reputation honestly. We came from a planet where everything was trying to kill us, so we evolved to be really, really good at not dying. We were persistence hunters, endurance specialists, and creative problem solvers. Most aliens were stronger, faster, or smarter than individual humans, but they'd evolved on worlds where cooperation and logic were the keys to survival. Humans had evolved on a world where sometimes the best solution was to grab a bigger stick and hit the problem until it stopped being a problem. The stim pack had taken all of those natural human traits and amplified them. I wasn't just angry about being shot and having my ship destroyed. I was cosmically, fundamentally, existentially pissed off, and I now had the enhanced physical capabilities to do something constructive about it. The asteroid base was coming into view, a collection of interconnected structures built into the rock face. It looked like someone had taken a mining operation and decided to turn it into a discount fortress. There were docking bays, living quarters, what appeared to be a command center, and enough defensive weapons to hold off a small fleet. Too bad for them that I wasn't a small fleet. I was something much worse, a human with enhanced abilities, a bad attitude, and absolutely nothing left to lose. I docked the maintenance drone at a secondary airlock, one designed for automated supply deliveries. The security was laughable, clearly designed to keep out other pirates rather than anyone with actual technical skills. I was inside the base within 10 minutes, moving through the maintenance tunnels like a very motivated ghost. The enhanced senses from the stim pack let me hear conversations through the bulkheads, track the pirates' movements by their footsteps, and navigate the base's layout by scent and sound. I could hear Vex in the command center, bragging to Zlorg about the successful raid and the valuable cargo they'd recovered. The Deathworlder never knew what hit her, he was saying. One shot, clean kill. These humans are supposed to be so dangerous, but they die just like anyone else. I smiled in the darkness of the maintenance tunnel. We'd see about that. The pirates' asteroid base had all the security sophistication of a screen door on a submarine. Clearly, these guys had watched too many movies and not enough educational documentaries about basic operational security. The maintenance tunnels ran throughout the entire structure, providing convenient access to every major system without any monitoring or defensive measures. It was like they were asking to be systematically eliminated by an extremely motivated Deathworlder with enhanced abilities and a comprehensive understanding of structural engineering. I started small. The first pirate was a lookout station near the secondary docking bay, probably there to watch for other ships that might want to interrupt their celebration. He was leaning against a bulkhead, reading what appeared to be a digital magazine titled Modern Piracy Weekly, completely oblivious to the fact that I was crawling through the ventilation system directly above his head. I dropped down behind him and tapped him on the shoulder. When he turned around, I introduced his face to my enhanced strength fist. He went down like a sack of potatoes, out cold before he hit the deck. I dragged him into a storage closet and zip-tied his hands with some cable I'd found in the maintenance tunnel. One down, approximately 20 to go. The next elimination was more creative. I found a pirate in the galley, trying to figure out how to work what appeared to be a coffee machine designed by someone who'd never actually seen coffee. The base's artificial gravity was generated by a series of rotating sections, and the galley happened to be right next to one of the control nodes. I accessed the gravity control panel through the maintenance network and gradually increased the gravitational force in the galley. The pirate didn't notice at first, but as the gravity climbed from standard to about 3 times normal, he started having trouble standing up. By the time he realized something was wrong, he was pinned to the floor by his own weight, unable to move or call for help. I left him there and moved on. No permanent damage, just a very uncomfortable pirate who'd be stuck until someone found him or I decided to turn the gravity back down. The third elimination involved the base's atmospheric systems. I found a pirate in the engineering section, trying to repair what looked like a life support monitor that had been held together with space tape and optimism. I rerouted the atmospheric controls to flood his section with an inert gas that would put him to sleep without causing any harm. He was unconscious within minutes, dreaming peaceful dreams while I continued my systematic approach to pipe reduction. By this point, the remaining crew members were starting to notice that their colleagues were disappearing. I could hear them on the internal comm system, calling for status reports that never came. Grixnor, report to the command center. Zlorg's squeaky voice echoed through the corridors. Silence. Erlins. Fortak, what's your status in engineering? And more silence. Someone find out where everyone went. Vex's voice was starting to sound less confident and more concerned. Run a full security sweep. The security sweep was adorable. 3 pirates with handheld scanners, walking through the corridors like they were looking for lost car keys. They had no idea how to conduct a proper search, no understanding of the base's blind spots, and apparently no concept that someone might be hunting them from the maintenance tunnels. I picked them off one by one. The first one got trapped in an airlock when I remotely sealed both doors and vented the atmosphere. He was alive but unconscious when the emergency systems kicked in and restored the air. The second one accidentally electrocuted himself when I rerouted power through a handrail he was using for support. Nothing fatal, just enough voltage to put him down for a few hours. The third one fell through a maintenance hatch that I'd carefully loosened, landing in a storage compartment filled with emergency foam that cushioned his fall and then hardened around him like cosmic bubble wrap. The enhanced abilities from the stim pack were making this almost too easy. I could hear heartbeats through the bulkheads, track movement patterns, and predict where the pirates would go before they knew it themselves. My enhanced strength let me manipulate the base's systems with casual ease, while my accelerated thinking helped me plan 3 steps ahead of their increasingly panicked reactions. There's something in the base. One of the surviving pirates was screaming over the comm. Something's picking us off one by one. Calm down, Vex replied. But I could hear the uncertainty in his voice. It's probably just a malfunction in the security systems. These old asteroid bases have problems all the time. Malfunction? The pirate shot back. Torglex is stuck to the floor in the galley. Whiskers is unconscious in an airlock. This isn't a malfunction. This is something hunting us. I had to give them credit for pattern recognition, even if they were a little slow on the uptake. The remaining pirates were gathering in the command center, which was exactly where I wanted them. Fewer places to hide, more predictable behavior, and most importantly, a central location where I could confront the architects of my very bad day. I made my way through the maintenance tunnels toward the command center, listening to their increasingly frantic radio chatter. The stim pack had enhanced more than just my physical abilities. My tactical thinking was sharper, my situational awareness was heightened, and my capacity for creative problem-solving had reached levels that would have impressed a military strategist. More importantly, my anger had crystallized into something pure and focused. These pirates had shot me, stolen my cargo, destroyed my ship, and worst of all, they'd ruined what was supposed to be a simple, boring Tuesday. They were about to learn why humans had earned their reputation as the galaxy's most persistent and vindictive species. Captain, Vex was saying as I positioned myself above the command center, we need to evacuate the base. Something's wrong here. This isn't normal. Nonsense, Zlorg squeaked back. We're not running from shadows and malfunctions. We're pirates. We don't run from imaginary threats. I smiled in the darkness above them. Imaginary threats. This was going to be fun. The command center of the pirate base was exactly what you'd expect from a discount villain operation. Lots of blinking lights, multiple screens showing things that looked important but probably weren't, and a general aesthetic that screamed we watched a lot of space opera movies and took notes. There were 5 pirates left, Captain Zlorg, Commander Vex, and 3 others whose names I hadn't bothered to learn because they'd be unconscious soon anyway. They were clustered around the central command console, weapons drawn, looking like a support group for people with severe paranoia issues. I dropped through the ceiling access panel and landed in the middle of their little gathering with all the subtlety of a meteorite impact. "Good evening, gentlemen," I said, brushing dust off my emergency suit. "I believe you have something that belongs to me." The silence that followed was profound. You could have heard a pin drop, if pins made sound in artificial atmosphere. Vex's plasma rifle was pointed at me, but his hand was shaking like he was trying to thread a needle during an earthquake. "Impossible," he whispered. "You're dead. I killed you myself." "Yeah, about that," I replied, cracking my knuckles with enhanced strength satisfaction. "Turns out killing a human is a bit more complicated than you might think, especially when that human has access to military-grade enhancement drugs and a really, really bad attitude about customer service." "Zlorg made a sound like a deflating balloon with anxiety issues, but we saw you die. The plasma bolt hit you directly in the chest." "Oh, it did," I nodded. "Hurt like hell, too. But here's the thing about Deathworlders that apparently didn't make it into your species' educational curriculum. We're remarkably difficult to kill permanently. It's kind of our thing." I gestured around the command center, where various status lights were blinking red to indicate the systematic shutdown of their base's defensive systems. "Also, while you were celebrating your victory and dividing up my cargo, I took the liberty of disabling your weapons, locking down your communications, and making some creative modifications to your life support systems. Nothing fatal. And mind you, I'm not a monster. Just enough to ensure that this conversation happens on my terms." Vex's reptilian face had gone from purple to a sickly green color at the stim packs. "You used our own cargo against us." "Bingo," I said cheerfully. "Military-grade human enhancement drugs, designed to turn regular soldiers into temporary super soldiers. But here's the really fun part. They work even better on humans who are already adapted to survive on a death world. Enhanced strength, accelerated healing, improved reflexes, and most importantly, a significant boost to our natural problem-solving abilities." I walked over to the main console and began accessing their computer systems with casual efficiency. "Did you know that human brains are optimized for pattern recognition and creative solutions to survival problems? It's an evolutionary adaptation from spending millions of years on a planet that was actively trying to kill us. Most aliens evolved logic and cooperation. Humans evolved stubbornness and spite. One of the unnamed pirates tried to make a break for the exit, but I was there before he'd taken 2 steps. Enhanced reflexes are wonderful things." I gently redirected him back toward his colleagues with a suggestion that he might want to stay and hear the rest of my presentation. "Now," I continued, "we have a problem. You stole my cargo, destroyed my ship, and shot me in the chest. In most civilized societies, this would be considered poor business etiquette. But I'm a reasonable person, so I'm willing to offer you a deal." Zlorg found his voice, which still sounded like a squeaky toy with delusions of authority. "What kind of deal?" "Single combat," I said simply. "You're champion against me. Winner takes all. If your guy wins, I'll leave quietly and you can keep the cargo. If I win, well, let's just say that would be inadvisable for your continued health and wellness." Vex stepped forward, his confidence apparently returning now that we were talking about violence instead of mysterious base infiltration. "Single combat? Against a Deathworlder? That's hardly fair." "You're right," I agreed. "It's not fair at all. I have enhanced strength, accelerated healing, improved reflexes, and I'm running on about 12 hours of concentrated anger. Plus, I'm from a planet where the wildlife includes things that hunt humans for sport. You're from a species that evolved on a world where the most dangerous predator was probably something equivalent to an irritated hamster." I paused for effect. "But I'm feeling generous, so I'll give you a handicap. You can use any weapon you want, and I'll fight bare-handed. How's that for sporting?" Vex's eyes lit up with greed and stupidity, which in my experience was a combination that usually ended with someone learning a valuable lesson about overconfidence. "Any weapon?" "Any weapon," I confirmed. "Plasma rifle, energy sword, projectile weapon, whatever makes you feel like you have a chance." The other pirates were looking at Vex like he was about to volunteer for a suicide mission, which technically he was. But pride and stupidity are powerful motivators, and Vex had plenty of both. "I accept," he declared, raising his plasma rifle. "I'll show you what happens when someone challenges the might of Captain Zlorg's fleet." "Fantastic," I said, stepping back to give him room. "Just so we're clear on the rules, this is to the death, winner takes all, and absolutely no crying when things don't go your way. Everyone agreed?" Vex powered up his plasma rifle, which hummed with enough energy to punch through starship armor. "Prepare to die, Deathworlder." I cracked my knuckles again and smiled. "Buddy, I already tried that. Didn't take." The fight lasted approximately 6 seconds, which was longer than I'd expected. Vex managed to fire his plasma rifle twice, both shots missing because enhanced reflexes let me move faster than his targeting system could track. By the time he realized he was shooting at empty air, I was already behind him. I grabbed the plasma rifle and crushed it with my bare hands, which made an impressive crunching sound that seemed to really capture everyone's attention. Then I picked up Vex and demonstrated the practical applications of enhanced strength by throwing him across the command center hard enough to dent the bulkhead. He tried to get up, which showed admirable determination if not particularly good judgment. I helped him back down with a gentle application of physics and superior leverage. The fight was over before Zlorg finished squeaking. "Well," I said, dusting off my hands, "that was educational. Anyone else want to discuss the finer points of interspecies combat, or can we move on to the part where I collect my payment?" Vex was unconscious, which was probably for the best considering what I was about to do next. I'd promised single combat to the death, and I always keep my promises. It's a matter of professional pride. The other pirates watched in horrified fascination as I knelt down beside their fallen champion. Now I want everyone to pay attention here, because this is an important lesson about the consequences of poor customer service. I drew the emergency knife from my spacesuit and looked up at Zlorg. "Your buddy here made a serious mistake when he shot me. See, humans have this thing about proportional response. Someone steals from us, we steal back. Someone breaks our stuff, we break their stuff. Someone tries to kill us." I gestured with the knife. "Well, you get the idea." "Please," Zlorg squeaked. He was just following orders. "This is just business. Nothing personal." "Nothing personal?" I laughed, and it wasn't a particularly pleasant sound. "You destroyed my ship. That ship was my home, my livelihood, and my only means of transportation in this cosmic armpit of a sector. You scattered my belongings across 3 cubic kilometers of space, including a coffee mug that had sentimental value and a collection of ancient Earth movies that took me 15 years to find." I tested the edge of the knife against my thumb, drawing a small bead of blood that healed almost instantly thanks to the stim pack enhancement. "So no, Captain Squeaky, this is definitely personal now." The deed itself was quick and professional. Vex had been unconscious, so he didn't suffer, which was more mercy than he'd shown me. I wrapped his head in a cargo net and secured it to my belt like the galaxy's most disturbing fashion accessory. The surviving pirates looked like they were about to be sick, which was understandable. Most species in the galaxy had evolved past the point where decapitation was considered a standard business practice. Humans, on the other hand, had a long and colorful history of making examples out of people who crossed us. "Right then," I said, wiping the knife clean and returning it to its sheath. "Let's discuss the terms of my compensation package." I walked over to their computer terminal and began accessing their financial records. "Let's see here. You've got accounts on 3 different worlds, a stockpile of stolen goods worth approximately 2 million credits, and what appears to be a small fleet of ships in various states of repair." Zlorg found his voice again, though it was even squeakier than before. "You can't just take everything. We have rights." "Rights?" I turned to look at him, and he actually took a step backward. "Did I have rights when you shot me and destroyed my ship? Did the other cargo haulers you've robbed have rights? Did the miners on Kepler Station have rights when you stole their medical supplies?" I transferred their entire financial assets to an account I'd set up years ago for emergencies. Consider this a customer satisfaction settlement. Plus interest, penalties for emotional distress, and a surcharge for being generally unpleasant to deal with. The next step was selecting a new ship. Their fleet consisted of the 3 vessels they'd used to attack me, plus 2 others that looked like they'd been stolen from other victims. I chose the newest and most well-maintained ship, a modified transport vessel that had been upgraded with better engines and defensive systems. "This one will do nicely," I announced, transferring the ship's registration codes to my name. Good cargo capacity, decent range, and unlike my previous ship, it's equipped with actual defensive weapons. I spent the next hour loading the ship with their stockpile of stolen goods, the recovered stim packs, and anything else that looked valuable or useful. The surviving pirates watched in sullen silence, probably calculating how they were going to explain this to whatever passed for pirate insurance these days. "Now," I said, sealing the last cargo container, "we come to the matter of your continued existence. Normally, after someone destroys my ship and shoots me in the chest, I'd be inclined to space the lot of you and let natural selection sort things out. But I'm feeling generous today." I accessed the base's communication system and sent a message to the nearest law enforcement agency. "I've just transmitted your location, criminal records, and a detailed confession of your recent activities to the authorities. They should be here in about 6 hours, which gives you enough time to contemplate your life choices and possibly take up a more legitimate career." Zlorg looked confused, which seemed to be his natural state. "You're just leaving us here?" "Oh, I'm not leaving you here," I corrected. "I'm leaving you here alive, which is considerably more than you deserve. The local authorities will probably sentence you to a few years of community service, maybe some rehabilitation programs. Think of it as a career counseling opportunity." I headed toward the docking bay where my new ship was waiting. Fair warning though, if I ever see any of you again, anywhere in the galaxy, I will not be nearly as charitable as I'd been today. Deathworlders have excellent memories for faces, and we tend to hold grudges for geological periods of time. The trip back to Kepler Station was peaceful and uneventful, which was exactly how I liked my space travel to be. My new ship handled like a dream, and the upgraded engines cut my travel time by 1/3. I spent the journey cataloging my newly acquired assets and planning my next moves. When I docked at Kepler Station, Administrator Keth was waiting for me with what looked like half the station's security force. The Nalthok's upper torso was practically vibrating with nervous energy, and his mandibles were clicking in the rapid staccato pattern that meant he was either very excited or very terrified. "Captain Thompson," he exclaimed as I descended the cargo ramp, "we received your transmission about the pirate base. The authorities are already en route to investigate. But we also received some disturbing reports about the nature of your encounter with them." I hefted the cargo net containing Vex's head a little higher on my belt. "Disturbing how?" Keth's compound eyes focused on my makeshift trophy, and his mandibles stopped clicking entirely. "Several of the pirates contacted us requesting political asylum and protection from what they described as the psychotic Deathworlder with the collection of severed heads." "It's just one head," I corrected. "And it's not a collection. It's evidence of lawful combat. There's a difference." "Is there?" Keth asked weakly. "Of course there is. A collection implies I go around randomly decapitating people for sport. This was strictly business. The pirate challenged me to single combat to the death. I accepted. I won. I kept the head as proof of victory. It's all very civilized when you think about it." One of the security guards, a young Threxian who couldn't have been more than 20 standard years old, raised his hand tentatively. "Sir, what are you planning to do with the evidence?" I considered this. Well, traditionally I'd mount it on a spike as a warning to other pirates. But that seems a bit excessive for a space station. I suppose I could have it preserved and mounted as a wall decoration for my new ship. Nothing says don't mess with this cargo hauler quite like the severed head of the last guy who tried. The security guard made a strangled noise and sat down heavily on a nearby cargo container. Or, I continued thoughtfully, I could donate it to the Galactic Museum of Natural History. They've got that section on Deathworlder customs that's always looking for authentic artifacts, traditional human conflict resolution methods, or something like that. Keth was wringing his hands now, which was impressive considering he had 4 of them. Captain Thompson, while I certainly appreciate your thorough handling of our pirate problem, I'm not sure the other residents of the station will be comfortable with you displaying trophy heads in public areas. Fair enough, I agreed. I'll keep it in my ship until I figure out what to do with it. Don't want to make anyone uncomfortable. I started unloading the cargo containers from my ship, whistling an old Earth tune about a lumberjack who was okay. The recovered medical supplies were exactly what they'd ordered, plus several boxes of additional equipment I'd liberated from the pirate stockpile. Here's your original order, I announced, plus some bonus items at no extra charge. Call it an apology for the delay in delivery. Keth examined the manifest with the careful attention of someone who was very grateful to still be alive. This is 3 times what we ordered, and some of this equipment is military grade. The pirates had expensive tastes, I explained. They figured you could use the extra supplies, and it's not like they were going to need them anymore. I spent the next hour helping the station crew move the medical supplies to their storage facility. The other residents gave me a wide berth, which was understandable. Word had apparently gotten around about my recent adventures, and humans already had a reputation for being unpredictably violent. Add in the severed head accessory, and I was probably giving off some seriously intimidating vibes. As I was securing the last of the cargo, Dr. Velix approached me cautiously. The elderly Calarian physician had been one of the few residents who'd treated me with anything approaching warmth during my previous visits. Captain Thompson, she said, her voice carrying the kind of calm authority that came from decades of dealing with medical emergencies. I wanted to thank you personally for recovering our medical supplies. We have 3 patients who were waiting for those stim packs, and without them. Just doing my job, Doc, I replied. Though I have to admit, the pirates made it more interesting than usual. She studied me with her large, multifaceted eyes. The reports we received suggested you were severely injured during the encounter. Are you feeling well? I rolled my shoulders experimentally. The hole in my chest had healed completely, leaving only a slight soreness and some scarring. Right as rain. Turns out those stim packs of yours are pretty effective. You used our medical supplies on yourself? Et-tu-l'as? Her tone was more curious than accusatory. Had to. Got shot through the chest by a plasma rifle. Figured you'd rather have me alive to deliver the rest of the shipment than dead and floating in space somewhere. Dr. Velix made a note on her medical tablet. Fascinating. Human healing factors combined with galactic medical technology. Would you mind if I ran some scans? And for research purposes, of course. I was about to agree when my ship's communication system chimed with an incoming message. The sender ID made me grin. It was from Captain Zara of the merchant vessel Starwind, one of the few other human cargo haulers operating in this sector. Thompson, you magnificent bastard, her voice crackled through the speakers. Did you really decapitate a pirate and steal his entire fleet? Just one ship, I called back. And technically it was lawful salvage after single combat. Very different from stealing. The whole sector's talking about it. 3 different news services want to interview you. The Galactic Commerce Guild is considering offering you a security contract, and apparently there's already a betting pool on which criminal organization you'll completely destroy next. I laughed. I'm not planning on destroying any more criminal organizations. I'm a cargo hauler, not a one-man army. Tell that to the Crimson Nebula Syndicate. The word is they put a bounty on your head and declared you a Deathworlder of extreme concern. How much? I asked, more out of curiosity than concern. 50,000 credits. Dead or alive. I considered this. That's actually pretty flattering. I was expecting maybe 10 or 15,000. Don't let it go to your head, Zara warned. These aren't the same kind of small-time pirates you just dealt with. The Crimson Nebula boys play for keeps. So do I replied. Besides, I've got a new ship now, better weapons, and a growing reputation. Let them come. After ending the call, I realized that Administrator Keth had been listening to the entire conversation with an expression of growing horror. Captain Thompson, he said carefully, Perhaps it would be best if you considered taking some time off. Maybe find a nice, quiet corner of the galaxy to lay low for a while. I patted him on one of his 4 shoulders. Don't worry about me, Keth. I've been dealing with bullies my whole life, and the thing about bullies is they usually back down when you hit them hard enough. But these aren't school bullies, he protested. These are organized criminals with fleets of warships and resources you can't imagine. And I'm a human, I replied simply. We've been punching above our weight class since we first figured out how to make pointy sticks. A few space pirates don't scare me. I finished my business on Kepler Station and prepared to depart. My new ship was fully loaded with trade goods. My accounts were healthier than they'd been in years, and I had a severed head to remind me that sometimes the galaxy could be a surprisingly straightforward place. As I was running through the pre-flight checklist, Dr. Velix appeared at my ship's airlock with a small medical kit. For the road, she explained. More stim packs, some antibiotics, and a few items that might come in handy if you run into more trouble. Thanks, Doc. Send me the bill. She waved one of her 6 hands dismissively. No charge. Consider it a professional investment. If you're going to keep getting shot and then healing dramatically, I'd like to have some data on the process. I sealed the medical kit in my ship's emergency locker and fired up the engines. As Kepler Station fell away behind me, I couldn't help but smile. The galaxy was a big, dangerous place full of pirates, criminals, and various other unpleasant characters who thought they could push around a simple cargo hauler. They were about to learn that humans had a saying about assumptions, and it involved making an ass out of you and me. Though in their case it was more likely to involve making a corpse out of them and a profit out of me. The stars stretched into lines as I engaged the hyperdrive, and somewhere in the distance, Vex's head swayed gently in its cargo net. It was going to be an interesting trip,